So you've built an AR, you go out to the range, and now you're having problems. I'm here with Jeff from Aero Precision, and if you've ever had this problem, we're gonna tell you a little bit of insight on where to start, because honestly, I done messed up. All right, I called you all the way down here to Louisiana to selfishly fix my problem, because this is the first one I built on my own. Take it out to the range, and it's not fully seating. That bolt is not fully seating. Where would you tell someone to start first?
So obviously the first question is, you built it, so you know what the components are, right? But if you're going to somebody to help you troubleshoot, you want to give them, the specs of your build, what the barrel length is, what gas block are you using, is it adjustable, is it not adjustable, what gas length, is it fully seated, is there potentially sometimes people install the gas tube upside down, and that affects things as well.
And you're not supposed to straighten these. These are supposed
to... Yeah. There's a bend to go up and over your barrel nut there.
Right. So when it goes on, and one of the great things, honestly, that Aero does so well is everything fits just right. And so it was not aligned correctly. And you noticed that immediately.
Yeah, so there was some issues there. In the alignment specifically, you had a cant to it, and then it was kind of off the shoulder of the gas block. And so those two things, the alignment of the hole in the gas block and the hole on the barrel are pretty vital to the function of the rifle. So if it's canted, that's one thing, right? Think about it like a moon in the sky, right? When it's a 3/4 moon, you have a nice little crescent to it, right?
Right.
So when you're canting your gas block, you're creating a kind of a crescent shape, and you'll still be able to get some cycling out of it because you're returning some gas into the system, which is where you told me your supers are running just fine, but you can't get your subs to run. And so that canting and then also pushing it away from the shoulder of the barrel, you're actually pinching that off even more. So you weren't just not getting enough gas into the system, and that was really the problem here.
Okay, and now there's actually, and we were talking about right before this, there's actually easier things that you can do to try first. And one of them is if you're shooting with a can on. Because the first question you asked, you were like, well, did you shoot it without the can on?
Yeah.
Well, of course I thought about that.
So with subsonic rounds specifically, there's already a drop in pressure from the subsonic rounds because they just don't have as big of a powder charge, and you're not returning as much energy into the system. So they kind of need a can, or in most cases they'll need a can, because your suppressor adds back pressure into the system, which dials up the pressure going back to the direct impingement system, allowing it to function with subsonic rounds. So when you had mentioned, again, that it was not running with the can on, then that tells me that it's most likely an alignment issue.
Well, which ended up being the problem with this one. But you guys get these questions all the time, and sometimes it's as easy as understanding how to lube your firearm correctly and having a clean firearm.
Yeah, if you speak with our customer service manager, oftentimes he gets firearms where people just can't get it running. We're more than happy to take a look, send us a ticket or a phone call or whatever, and we'll get you into our system and bring in what's giving you troubles to take a look at it. But a lot of the times it's just as simple as properly lubricating your firearm, putting enough lubrication onto your bolt carrier group or into other areas that need lubrication into your rifle to get it moving smoothly. And this is more, it's definitely a bigger problem after you finish a fresh build, because those parts haven't really worked in together as well. So the lubrication helps reduce the friction that maybe like your bolt carrier is seeing. And so you're slowing down the travel from the friction of the upper and lower receiver, because you're just not giving it enough to kind of flow past one another and work itself in as you work in the build.
So I guess one of my big questions is like the break-in period and stuff like that, because I initially thought, well, maybe I just need to fire this gun a little bit more, lubricate it, and it'll work itself in. But that's probably not going to be the case. The gun's going to run just fine if it's put together right.
For the most part, yeah. Your AR-15 should run fairly reliable after proper assembly and lubrication. So that's really kind of
That's an old wives' tale, isn't it?
Initially,
Don't believe them.
not entirely. It depends on what you're trying to go for with a
Right.
break-in period, whether it's barrel break-in and whatnot. Some people are really particular about that kind of stuff, and there's, if you're a good enough shooter to realize the benefits of that process, then it does have its benefits. Right. But generally speaking, your general AR shooter is probably just fine assembling properly and lubricating properly and getting out to the range. So if you're not seeing proper function right out of the gate, start with lubing it first off. Take a look at the rifle, see if anything looks strange or out of place or different or whatever. But
not how you put it together.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then from there, start with lubrication and troubleshoot from there.
Okay, and troubleshoot from there. So we understand this is a gas problem on this, but ammo causes issues as well. Yeah. What you're shooting through your gun matters.
Yeah. So obviously, we've all been to the store and you get your 308 match grade ammo or whatever, right? The reason that you get those match grade kind of monikers is the factories pay more attention to the seating depths. They pay more attention to the powder charges. There's more consistency round to round versus your standard plinking ammo, like let's say for instance like a steel case 9mm or something like that, right? You get a general powder drop that's within a variance of whatever percent the factory deems okay there, and then from there it can vary wildly. And you can see this if you use something like a chronograph out at the range, and you'll see like standard deviations on your muzzle velocity because the consistency isn't there between things like that, different rounds. So.
Okay, all right. So we've kind of unboxed where you need to start, like kind of what issues you're having to start. I guess one tip that helped me, and I was having a friend out there to kind of see what was going on, to kind of troubleshoot between the two of you on how and where the problems are lying. But it's a great deal to have someone else like look at it with you.
Another set of eyes is invaluable when you're out at the range trying to figure out what's going on.
Absolutely.
One really good step, especially for the problems that you were having, is if somebody has a phone that they can film in slow motion and see, are you getting enough gas to throw that bolt back and cycle and pick up another round off the mag? And then you can kind of really tell immediately.
And
again.
That's exactly where it was going, because we were getting another round in there, but it wasn't seated fully forward.
That bolt just wasn't
fully locking in. But it was nice to have someone out there to watch, see it go down, and say, "Yeah, it's got to be a gas issue." But let's talk about the buffer spring, and that's kind of one of the final stages on what you need to kind of look for, and that might be a problem.
Sure. So depending on the style of build that you're going for, in this case, we'll use this as a good example here. You have your 300 blackout pistol that is built specifically to be used with a suppressor, right?
Right.
And so with your suppressor, whether you're using supers or subs, you could end up with a situation where you need to dial in your buffer weight to either slow down or allow the bolt carrier to speed up in terms of travel, because the more weight you have on the buffer, the slower that bolt's going to travel backwards, because it has to work against the weight, the mass that's sitting there. Buffer springs, buffer weights are things that you can play with depending on what build you're going for. There's carbine buffer springs, there's rifle buffer springs, there's standard carbine weights that are right around that 3.2 ounce or somewhere right around there, depending on where you get them from. There's heavy buffers, there's H2 buffers, there's H3 buffers, there's the Voltor A5 system, which has a intermediate length spring, a longer carbine tube. There's so many options that you can go down.
Yeah, you're going through all of them. I'm like, I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that option.
And so, and that's my point really, is the buffer system is another tuning point in the system. Like for instance, you weren't using an adjustable gas block here, but that gives you some room to play with when it's properly assembled, to dial in your gas system so that you're not overgassed if you have to shoot supers with a cannon, but you can dial it back for your subsonic rounds and get a nice comfortable function, and you're not getting hit in the face with your gas.
All the gas coming out of that thing. So don't worry. These are a lot of options, a lot of thoughts for you to troubleshoot your problems. So if you do a build, start out at the basics. Lube your firearm correctly, and then work back from there.
Sure.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I should add too, you know, if you're having feeding issues or anything like that, oftentimes that's a mag related issue.
That's another one.
And
yeah.
so feeding specifically is usually related to the magazine. It depends on what the situation is, but a large percentage of the time it can be due to the mag. So make sure you're trying different magazines, not just the one or two you have at the range that you probably bring to the range on a regular basis. Buy a new magazine, see if that's going to fix the problem. Try a different manufacturer's magazine. That always helps too. So just something else to think about.
Some options if you have problems with your AR build, start here.